Reimagining Success, episode 168. You're listening to Reimagining Success, the podcast where we help you reimagine your future, designing a life and career beyond the 9 to 5 that allows you the freedom, flexibility and fulfillment that you've been dreaming of. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg. Now, let's get started on those dreams. One of the reasons we might be procrastinating, one of the reasons we might be held back and not taking action, not working towards our most important goals, and it seems illogical, is that we're asking ourselves implicitly, am I good enough? Can I really do this? And the subtle nuance under there, I guess, or again, implicit in that question is, no, probably I'm not good enough is the answer. So there's no point in trying because I'm just going to fail anyway. So why do I bother? Why am I even going to try? Who do I think I am? Et cetera, right? So all that could be going on in the little tiny cells in our brain as we think, oh, we're just being lazy, we're procrastinating, I'm just not getting off my bum to do that thing. Take that one step that we talked about last week. But no, we're actually holding ourselves back with those limiting beliefs that we talk about in coaching. Even though it's a rhetorical question, the implicit answer there is, no, I'm not. And so I'm not going to do it. I have shared before my goal of getting more media coverage. And to be honest, I've sort of optimistically been kind of identifying that even over my maternity leave and so on. And you know, I did everything. I had the strategy, I identified the publications, I had the template, I'd got expert advice on how to formulate the pitch, etc., etc. I just didn't do it. I sent a couple of emails tentatively and then nothing. And of course, if I got a no, if I didn't hear back at all, that just confirmed like, oh, it's so hard to get media coverage. There's no point in trying. Oh my goodness, who am I to think, etc. Recently, you may have seen, hopefully you saw that I got a double-page spread in our local magazine, Dorset Living, which is a magazine we've been really enjoying the last few months since we moved down here. Very, very high quality, glossy magazine. And they were really lovely. They gave me the opportunity to write this piece on sort of my story, but really giving tips on how to redefine success. So really core to my message. And that's incredible. For me, it feels like such an achievement to get it, you know, something I've written into a print magazine, beautiful pictures. Who knows what it will lead to, but certainly it's been an incredible opportunity, incredible experience, and I hope there's more where that came from. However, in this process, and more recently, as I, again, come back to this goal of getting more publicity, I guess, with the goal of spreading my message more, right? Building the community, getting more people to question the conventional definition of success. When I read magazines, there is so much content and so many interesting pieces, so many pieces that I feel like are just regurgitating old stuff. You know, it's the cycle of January, new year, new you, fitness, wellness goals, etc. There's a lot of very high quality journalism as well. There is a lot of content in print, certainly, but even more so, of course, online, right? There is so much. What happens? My brain says, literally, not just implicitly, but my brain says, okay, what could I possibly have to say that's unique? What could I have to offer? That's a totally different perspective. That's completely mind-blowing, game-changing, life-changing, worthy of inserting myself into this conversation. And to some extent, that's true for all of us in business, in branding, and the message we have. On the one hand, we feel it's so important. We're so passionate about it. We have this mission, this why. On the other hand, there's that imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? We start going, hang on a second. And the truth is there is so much clutter out there. So many other business coaches, personal trainers, freelancers, graphic designers, consultants, etc., what you happen to be doing. And it's so easy to think because of that, there's no point. Again, you know, I have nothing to contribute. I can't possibly become the go-to expert here. You know, who am I to think that I could have something to say on this? I'm never going to be good enough, etc. And I think that's really dangerous. And it's something that we all need to, and certainly I need to work on. And I wanted to share a few thoughts, I guess, on how we might begin to address that, to overcome that. And I think it's going to be hard. There'll always be, and in fact, I think there'll be more and more doubts as the more successful we become, because then we're going to rub shoulders with even more successful people who've done even more things than we have. So it's hard not to feel that sense of doubt and am I good enough? But a few things to bear in mind. First of all, good enough according to whose standards? Because we have this kind of fluffy thought in our heads, am I good enough? Am I good enough? First of all, what does good mean? And secondly, what does enough mean, right? Define your terms. So enough for what? Good enough to become the go-to foremost leader on this topic? Maybe not right now. Good enough to have something to say? Yeah, I'd say so, most of us, right? Good enough for me to at least try? Good enough to help at least one person out there? I always say, and I hear a lot of people saying, that as long as you're one step ahead of someone, speaking of one step, you're an expert to somebody. You might think certain things are easy and obvious, but for other people, it seems really difficult. I quit my job now 8 odd years ago. I want to say 9 years ago now. My goodness, almost 9 years ago. And so, I've had quite a bit of experience of the process since then. I've coached a lot of people through that process. I've had my own twists and turns of freelancing, consulting, building my brand, building my business. And so actually, yes, I believe I am good enough to say a few little things on this topic, right? Something else to bear in mind. You're not starting from a blank slate. That's something I see again and again in clients. When we're quitting a job and starting a new thing, pivoting into a new arena, we might feel like we're starting from scratch. If someone asks, and now again, it's been some years for me, but if someone had asked how long you've been coaching, I would have said, I've just started, I've just become a coach. But actually, I've been coaching, training, mentoring in my corporate career for years before, and many people will find that too. So even if you're doing something that seems on the surface very, very different to what you were doing in your previous job, that doesn't take away that experience. That experience makes you uniquely you. And part of that is Steve Jobs, connecting the dots. Part of it is identifying your transferable skills. And part of it is creating that magic, unique combination that is you. I mentioned before my previous business coach some years ago, Kelly Roach, was a cheerleader as well as working in big corporation like me and so on. And that's sort of the professional athlete kind of vibe that she brings. And she's focused more and more on that because that's what makes her a part of what makes her magic sauce, I suppose, as they call it. And my particular experience, it could be a hobby I have, it could be my particular journey, having, I don't know, even had Swedish parents, going to international schools to some extent, growing up in the UK, traveling, living in Switzerland for 10 years, etc., etc. All these experiences will have given me a certain viewpoint, certain experience, certain expertise that, again, makes my little magic sauce that isn't identical to anyone else. Of course, lots of other people have worked in a big multinational corporation, even at P&G where I worked. Again, there are lots of business coaches, lots of life coaches, lots of writers, but I have something unique to bring to the table. And again, I have that experience from previous roles and possibly previous careers in some cases for you, right? So don't think that you have to start from scratch. Another one, which I say again and again, I hope we can get into our heads, is that we shouldn't compare our year 1 to someone else's year 5, year 10. Again, I'm now coming up to many more years. Now, I should say, and I'm partly saying this to, make myself feel better about not being further along, because we always want to be further along. I initially, when I quit in 2013-14, did digital marketing consultancy for a couple of years. Amazing. Gave me lots of freedom to travel between contracts. I was earning a lot of money, really exciting projects to work on. I then came to coaching. I didn't take it that seriously, to be honest, for the first couple of years. It was working with Kelly, my business coach, that really kind of stepped up my mindset there to show up consistently and think of it as a business. And then I relatively quickly after that, as I started focusing on it as a business, had 2 kids. So, being off quite a bit, albeit I have kept the brand going and I've kept, a certain level. I haven't had that much time, and I have to give myself that grace, give myself a little bit of compassion to see, actually, even though it seems like it's, 8, 9 years, it hasn't been concentrated time. So of course it's going to be slower if you're building a side hustle alongside a full-time job, if you're juggling it with kids, if you have a portfolio career of several businesses or careers, etc. If you have, if you're taking care of your aging parent or someone, you have to think about your particular situation. And again, the point of this is don't compare yourself at all, but certainly don't compare yourself starting out to someone else who is 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. And important to note there is you don't know how long they've been struggling. I shared some time ago that The Long Game, the book by Dory Clark, I loved hearing her story because she says she took 5 years of speaking of media, trying to pitch herself to media, getting rejected, getting dumped by her agent. She wanted to get a book deal. And after that, only after that, when it took off, when she'd written 500 articles for Forbes, whatever it was, then she was approached to write a book. Then her career took off. So 5 years under the surface, and you only see the tip of the iceberg. What else? Something else to bear in mind, the growth mindset, which I've talked about before. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset, meaning it's not that I'm not good enough ever. I'm just not, as a person, good enough to do this. It's, I may not be good enough yet. I can't do this yet. I don't know how yet. I'm not the best yet, right? But I can learn. I will get better. And in the meantime, by the way, that doesn't mean we have to sit until we are perfect, because that's one of the things that holds us back as well, right? I've got to first do this 2-year MBA. I have to have that formal qualification. I have to first blah, 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 whatever it is we think we have to have. By all means, start. We can start coaching today. No, we won't be the most experienced. We might start pro bono. We might start with a bit of barter, as we called it in our coaching program. You know, I coach you, you coach me, peer coaching. You might start with quite a low rate and so on. But as you get the confidence and experience and realize that, hey, I do know what I'm doing, you're getting the results, your clients are getting the results, then that confidence will build. So again, growth mindset, you're not there yet, but wherever there is, you know, you're certainly getting closer every day. And then finally, and this is a real big one for me, you don't have to be, sorry to disappoint you maybe, the one all-powerful, all-knowledgeable guru on the topic. It seems incredible to be the Dalai Lama or to be Oprah or to be these, you know, incredible, iconic people. But there are so many other experts, successful people, driven people, people who have incredible thought leadership and so on that maybe aren't as publicly known. And there are many others that aren't at all known and still have a successful business, still make important contributions to the discussion. So that's the key here. Aim to make a contribution, contribute to the discussion, literally, whether that's a post on LinkedIn, an article, hey, this is my own story, my experience. Ask your audience, you know, don't presume to know better than everyone else. By all means, be a little open, but aim to make that contribution. Don't go in there thinking you have to know everything. As an aside, but I think it's relevant here, I often share, I do some training sessions, webinars for corporate organizations and employees. And one of them is on presentation skills. And I love sharing the example that when I first did presentations in the corporate world, and I have to say, we never did this at university. So I went to Oxford University, very traditional and a bit of a strange model where we had tutorials. We didn't have big lectures in my topics. We didn't have seminars. A lot of my colleagues had to do presentations and things. And I guess I'm getting quite old now too. We didn't have a huge amount of tech, I suppose, as well. But I hadn't even used PowerPoint when I started at P&G. Putting the presentation together, I certainly hadn't made big presentations. So, okay, I wasn't good enough yet. Certainly, I didn't have the experience. My story was that I made some pretty bad, well, certainly one particular really bad presentation. And without getting into the detail of that particular presentation, one particular shift for me was that someone pointed out, or someone prompted to ask me, what's the purpose? Why are you presenting? What are you there to do? Is it to prove to everybody that you're the most knowledgeable person, that you're perfect, that you're the expert? If that's the case, that puts a whole lot of pressure on you, right? Every question they ask me, I have to know the answer to. I don't want to look like a fool. I have to pack the presentation full of everything that's ever existed on the subject. Arguably, that's not the purpose. That's certainly not my purpose. Is the purpose instead to teach the audience 3 things? Often it's, you know, why is this important? What do you need to know? And how can you do it? Or, hey, this is the context. These are some key points. This is how you can find out more information. You know, it's really 1 thing, 3 things. More than that, people aren't going to take away. So it's better to focus on something simple. And while we're not teaching presentation skills here, I just love that reframe, that you need to think about why you're doing this. Are you trying to prove to everybody that you are good enough? Because that's, you know, getting you off on the wrong foot to begin with, actually, to come around full circle to the title. Are you trying to prove to yourself, to your parents, to society, to your colleagues that you're the best? Or are you trying to make a contribution? Do you have an important message that you feel is valuable and that you want to share? Do you have your own personal story that you feel is important to share for other people in your situation? Do you want to help people? Most of us with businesses are driven to help people. So think about why you're wanting to contribute to this topic, why you're wanting to build this business, why you're wanting to perhaps get more media coverage, exposure, and so on, and focus on that and focus on, okay, well, if that's the case, if I'm just trying to make a difference, even if one person joins my Facebook group, even if, 3 people listen to my podcast episode and make a change, that's incredible. So I hope you can reframe it, and I hope you can maybe pause and go back and listen to a few of these again, and see, not just, listening to them and sort of forgetting all about it, but thinking which of these would be most powerful as a reframe for you. Is it thinking about, okay, whose standards are you trying to live up to? Reminding yourself you're not starting from a blank slate, not comparing yourself to someone else who's way further along, remembering the growth mindset, and finally, really aiming to make that contribution at the end of the day. So I hope that was valuable for you. Am I good enough is something that can hold us back, but I hope with a few of those shifts there, I'll be able to help you and myself to stop procrastinating, to stop thinking we have to be perfect, and to take action and make that contribution. See you next week.
Are you ready to build and scale your business to achieve everything you dreamed of when you started, without sacrificing your personal life and your sanity to do so? The truth is that escaping the 9-to-5 is not just about saying, I quit, to your boss, or putting up a website and ordering a set of business cards. A sustainable escape requires you to design and build a viable business that consistently brings in income and that fits in around the other priorities in your life. Join us in the Outsiders Business Accelerator to get ongoing coaching, training, and mentoring to help you create a long-term brand and business that works for you. Read more and apply at onestepoutside.com/accelerate. That's onestepoutside.com/accelerate.